Hi everybody, it's Joni here. Welcome back for another painting tutorial in acrylics. Today I'm going to show you how to paint Santa walking down the lane with an old-fashioned looking village, very blurred out in the background, to create a really soft and nostalgic ambiance to this Christmas painting. So join me now, hit subscribe, and let's go ahead and get started. The colors I'm using today are titanium white, Mars black, ultramarine blue, luminous orange, Napthol crimson, and Pyrol red. I've got a 16 by 20 stretched canvas, and the first brush I'll be using is my number 70 brush. I'm going to be painting the top portion of the canvas a soft shade of gray, and then we'll build up some trees in the background and start blocking in some simple shapes and edges for our little village. I'm just going to spray the canvas down with some water first. This will help me blend my acrylics. Okay, I'm going to take a mixture of white, blue, and black. So I've got all three colors on my brush. I want you to use a lot less black because the black is really dark and you only need a little bit of it for the first base coat. So I'm just going to come in just below the halfway mark. So find the middle of your canvas and then go down an inch or so from there. We're just going to pull across and just spread it all around the canvas. So this is a nice shade of gray because we're making a bluey gray color that's going to be complementary with our orange. We're going to make a very soft peachy shade, just tinting our white with that orange to give us a nice soft peach. Okay, then I'm going to come underneath with a little bit of white and I'm going to catch that line here and we're going to gradiate that downward. So see how we're making it a lot softer? Because we're going to have some soft shadows down here. So we're going to have a shadow that comes here. We'll just add a little skinny triangle like this, a narrow triangle. And then a little bit down here. And then we're going to have a few lines that come and wrap around like this. Just for where our Santa is. So we've just got just a little indication here of some shadows. I'm going to add a little bit more blue to my white. And I'm just going to come in here with sort of another triangle on a little bit of an angle. And we're going to bring it in to the road. We'll sweep over that gray. Give a little bit more white, soften this. Anything that I'm leaving white unpainted is going to be gone over with a little bit of light peach that I'll make with luminous orange and white. I'm going to take just a little bit more black Mix that up with my blue and white mixture. And I'm going to kind of tap in here, bringing this line a soft curve, sort of diagonal, more to the right. I'm going to add some white on my brush, and I'm going to just sweep. And then I'm going to add another little area here so we get some tracks on our road. And then another one kind of in the middle here. Okay, so something like that. And then I'll just brush out the rest. And I'm going to take a number 10 smaller Filbert brush, a little bit of water, and I'm going to soften any streaky looking lines and marks here. And just a little tap and pull, scumble around, just a soft blending. And what this is doing is just giving us an area where Santa's walking. So the old road going through the village with some snow on it, and you can just see a few little tracks, maybe from somebody pulling a sled or a car, or just where people have been walking. It leads you into this old-fashioned little village. I love old-fashioned Christmases. Anything vintage, nostalgic Christmases are my favorite kind. And I'm going to take a little bit more water and a little bit more of my bluey gray mixture and make this a little darker inside. A little bit more. This is very similar to a Payne's gray, so if you have Payne's gray, you can use that. I really like making my own colors though, because then you get so many other shades in between and it's just kind of fun. I'm going to come along the side here again, just making it a little darker in tone, emphasizing on more shadows. Put a little bit of white into that and just soften the edges. I'll add another shadow here, some white along with it. And I'm going to gently start to sweep up again with white. I'm going to fine mist my canvas with a little bit of water. I'm going to add a little bit here as well, water and white. And then just add a few little soft lines with some white. I'm going to come in here and start adding a little bit of white right against the darkest parts. So these will be our brighter highlights. Keeping our brush strokes nice and loose to help create that texture or smoothness where we want. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out now. And I'm just going to use one of my mop brushes. It's dry and clean. I'm just going to start tapping in some soft trees in the background in the distance, so nothing really in full detail. I'm going to make a shade of gray a little darker than this. So a little bit of blue, white, and black. Tap to load the brush. And I'm just going to start simply by pushing and tapping and moving around. And then in some areas, I'm just going to light scumble around like this. Come in, add a little bit of extra white this time. Tap lightly. It's all about just creating that illusion of trees. That are in the distance. And I'm going to mix up a little bit more blue and white. So just this light blue violet shade that we've made now with the ultramarine blue and the white. And I'm just going to go around in little circles. And add a little bit there. I'm going to rinse that brush out. I'm going to take one of my small mop brushes. You can use any small brush for this if you don't have a little mop brush. And I'm just going to take some white and I'm going to add little taps for little clumps of snow where the snow is just collecting on some of these branches and leaves. Nothing neat and tidy looking. It should be natural and somewhat kind of messy, you know, so it looks realistic. So add some areas a little, or add a little bit more white to make some of the areas a little thicker, so they don't all look like they're the same amount or shape on each. They've got to be different. You've got to change up the shape and the amount here and there. And I'm going to come in with another dry and clean mop brush, go to a little bit of white. I've got 2 areas of white here just so that if I want to make sure that I've got a clean area of white for possibly mixing with these, because this one's really dirtied up with the blue and the black. Just if you're wondering why I'm switching, that's the only reason. But here I just want to kind of tap in and add a different type of treetop. Now we could add a little bit here and there to this one as well, just to make it a little different. Okay, now we're going to start coming in with our houses. Now you could use any size Filbert brush or flat brush that you like. I'm going to stick with this number 10 Filbert brush, and I'm going to start by adding a little rooftop back here. I'm just going to come over here, go across an inch or 2, probably 2 inches, and then down on an angle. I'm going to paint that in. No water. I'm just using straight paint because I don't want to thin it out. I want this to show up because we're going to be going over with a white dry brush to make everything even more blurrier and misty and look like there's a light snow. I'm going to add a little chimney, so I'm going to take a little bit of black, just add it there, and I'm just going to come underneath the roof line first and then add a little chimney on the back end, a little shadow, just a little light pull and sweep. I'm going to take some white and just mix that in with that soft gray. We're going to be covering up this side of the house with another house, so that's why I don't need to spend too much time on this one, finishing the entire house. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add a little bit of snow, some white to the side of the chimney and the top. Just going to soften that a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more white, brighten that up. And then once we're done painting our village, I'm going to dry it off, and then we're going to come in and just add a little bit of orange tinted white, and it'll be really beautiful. Okay, so it's time to come in with the next house. This one's going to be a little bit darker. I've already got some white in my brush. I'm just going to mix up some blue and black in there. And this time we're going to have the roof line come down in the shape of a triangle like this. And then we're going to add a rectangle. Okay, so just really simple shapes, just breaking it down into those basic shapes. Triangle, paint it in. And then your rectangle. I'm just gently pulling and flicking like this off the bottom so that it just fades. I'm going to take a little bit of white in with this, mix that up, crisscross, scoop, Gonna go across here so it's a little lighter. And we'll just paint that in. So more like a square shape. And then we'll take a scoop of white and we're going to paint the roof. If you want to have a little bit on the left side of your roof line, you can do that as well. Now maybe we've got a few windows, just a light little push and dab. Make some skinny rectangle shapes like that. And then on the lighter side, you'll add darker ones. Now, I don't know how much of these we're going to be covering up with the next house. I'm going to come under the roof line with a little bit more blue and black. Make it a little darker. And I'm going to rinse my brush out. We're going to have a house here that's going to cut off the end of this one, so we're not going to see a chimney here. We're just going to take off a little bit of that paint. Make that kind of fade and disappear because we're going to be covering over it. We're also going to have, so we're going to build another house up here. This one is going to be a little taller than this one, so it's going to, the roof line will come up here. So let's begin that. Let's get our blue and black again. Mix it up with a little bit of white. And we're going to have a roof line just like so. I'm going to go up a little bit on the edges, just corners there, just to give it a little bit of a little bit more feeling and detail. Just adding a bit of water. Mixing up some more color. Again, blue, black, and gray. Okay, we're just going to pull down. Take a bit of white, lighten that, and add it to the other side. Then straight white. And add our roof. And then down here, let me just get the edge of this house a little bit more. And the roof line. Down here, we're going to have a few more houses. Okay, just rinsed my brush out. I'm going to add a little chimney. Same as the other one, just a little rectangle. And then a little shadow. I'm going to make one side a little darker. We'll take blue and black and add it to the left side of the chimney. I'm going to add a little bit more of a shadow to the left side of the roof line as well. And we've got a few little windows in here. Using the dark paint for the light side and light paint, white, for the dark side. Okay, rinsing my brush out. And I'm going to add a roof line here first. I'm going to come down here on an angle, pull it over. Okay, paint that in. Get some blue and black. Mix that up. I'm going to blur up the bottom just by going over with that gray. Take some extra blue and black straight with no white. And go over the roof line and the corners of the front of the house. You can add a few little windows. And a little chimney. And take some extra white. Brighten that roof up. And then I'm going to come right below the house where we have the gray, and I'm going to bring in a little bit of white. So it's going to kind of look a little stripy. Start to soften, just easing a little bit of that soft white, mixing it in with a little bit of the wet gray. Now we're going to come in with our next house. Again, a little bit of blue and black. And we're going to bring the roof line up a little bit higher. We're going to go across here, down, so we've got our little triangle here, and then we're going to go over that roof, part of that roof. It's all about layering. Don't be afraid to layer over, paint over, because that's going to give you that really 3D layered effect. Cut in that roof line once more. And then I'm going to take some white, blend that in, go across. Now we're going to take our white. I'm going to add a little bit to the left side of the roof, and then we're going to bring it over. Fill that in. Add a little white line there. Add a few windows, a little bit of black. Just outline the house again under the roof line to make it nice and dark. And then A little shadow under the roof line. And a few windows. Okay, then I'm going to take some blue and we're going to make that bluey, dark bluey gray color again. Crisscross, pull to load, and scoop it up. And bring in another house right here, so we're going to cut across just a little bit below this chimney if you're wondering. Okay, just about a ½ inch below that chimney is where you can start it. And then we'll bring it down. Right over top here. And then paint it in. I'm going to use extra blue and black and cut right down the roof line to make it nice and dark. I'm going to add a few windows. Take a little bit of white and just go on the left side of where we added the windows, just adding a little line. I'm going to add some white on top of the roof line. Put a little bit of gray and just cut across this roof here because it was blending in too much with the side of that house. So we're going to have a tree in here, but I just want to get this covered up. So we've got a dark base, darker solid base to go by. Okay, we'll be drying this off in a moment, but before I do that, I want to add a few branches on this tree over here and also add the tree in front of here. So I'm going to be using one of my long liner brushes, some water. The water will help thin the paint out and glide your brush across. So a little bit of black and blue, tiny bit of white in there. And I'm just going to kind of just wiggle out. You can paint your branches a little thicker than this if you want. I'm not going to see the tree trunk, I just want to see some branches. The tree comes off the edges, off the other side, like the main tree trunk. Adding some more water because the brush is so small that it doesn't hold a lot, so that means you're going to have some patience and know that you have to go back often. I'm going to add a little bit of white now to some of these branches. Now I'm applying the white on top of the darker color, above where the snow would stay and rest on those branches. Just a little bit like that. Now I'm going to add just some straight white snowy branches as well. Really want to thin your paint out. with a little bit of that water so that you're able to glide your brushes out and get that nice, soft, wispy brush stroke. So maybe we'll add a little tree in here. Just a little light flick of the wrist and a little shake, pull. Just have a few little trees back here. Have some light between these houses. I'm gonna rinse that brush out. Go back over to my other Filbert brush that I was using before. Add a little bit of light in here. And I'm going to use, not that one actually, a little bit bigger mop brush with some white. A little bit of white. Don't want any big globs on there. And I'm just going to add a few little snow-covered branches there. I'm going to get a little bit heavier with the amount of paint I'm adding now, and I'm going to add little taps of soft white snow here over part of the branches. And part of the house. I'm going to take a little bit of white and place it on top of the chimneys. And then I don't know if this is going to show up because it's a little bit of smoke coming out of here, but this one, just going to wiggle it a little bit. But these ones won't show up because it's already a white or soft background, a brighter background, so the white's not going to show up there. Just going to take my hair dryer, dry this off for a few moments. I'm going to just take my Filbert brush first, and we'll add some white with some of the orange. And we'll make this really pretty, soft peach shade. And what I'm going to do is start adding it. Look how pretty that is. Adding it over wherever I've got white. So the roofs. You could add a little bit in the windows. And then I'm going to come down below and add a soft sweep. And play up a little bit more on that peach, just adding a little bit more color. I'm going to just take a little bit of water. So wherever we have the white, we're just going over top of that with a little bit of this tinted white. You could use any shade of yellow or orange that you like. And believe it or not, yellow ochre would be really beautiful too. Being a little bit kind of shaky around here for rougher looking textured snow and prints in the snow. Okay, and now I'm going to go over the trees and the sky. You could use a bigger brush for this if you want. I love a peach glow over everything. It just makes it so delicate looking and warm. Even though winter is cold, it's got a beautiful, warm, magical glow to it. Okay, I'm going to switch over to a larger brush now. I'm just going to use a number 30 larger Filbert brush and mist this. Thin some white out, whitey peach shade. Mist this too because I just want it to be thin. Thin and just blur it up a little bit. We're not covering up all the shadows. They're still going to be there. This is going to dry a little bit darker because there's some water mixed in with it. I'm just going to add a little bit more, make it a little heavier right in here to help create that depth. I'm going to add the tree in here. I'm I'm going to take my long liner brush again, start with some branches, some black and some blue and some white. Thin it out with water. I just got a little spray bottle here on hand. This one has a finer setting, a finer misting setting on it. And I'm just going to come and twist over here. Twist, roll between my fingers. I'm going to take some white, add a few snow-covered branches before we add a little tap here and there. Okay, I'll start with my little mop brush here. I'm going to take just some white, maybe a little bit of orange in there. And I'll just start by just tapping. I'm turning my brush, lifting it up after each tap. Being a little bit more generous with the amount of paint I'm applying my brush so that we get this a little clumpier looking. And I'm going to just take the rest and blur up part of that path. Now I've rinsed my brush out, dried it off. It's just a little bit wet still. And I'm going to go around in little circles, lifting my brush off each time. So gentle swirl, lift it up, move over, just to give this a little bit of a softness. I'm going to be using a small number 4 Filbert brush. And I'm going to start with my Napthol Crimson. I had to remember what it was called. A little bit of black. I'm just going to take that down here. We'll make a nice deep dark red shade. And we're going to have his hat right about here. So we're going to add half a circle on an angle, like so. We're going to bring it up a little bit, make that half a circle a little bit taller, and then we're going to just ease off here and then gently let off on the pressure. So you're just using the end of your brush. So there's his hat. We're going to add some other shades of red in a little bit. We're going to leave a space here because we're going to have the white on his hat and his hair, his big white bushy hair, and then his coat will be right about here, shoulders. So we're going to come over at his shoulder, past his hat, his head, okay? So come out a little bit further than his hat. We're going to bring down, take a little bit more paint there, bring down his arm on an angle and then curve it down here. And then we're going to bring his waist in right about here, and he'll have a belt that comes across. And just pick up a little bit of water and mix some more up. I'm going to come on the left side of his arm and then come in Remember, he's going to be carrying a sack of toys on his back, so we don't need to paint his other arm. We're not going to see it. He's going to have the white of his cuff and then his hand curled in like this. So his hand kind of looks like this, or more like, it's hard to hard to show you in the camera, but I think you guys know what I mean. Okay, so let's take some more paint, some more red here, mix that in. Again, he'll have a little belt right here. I'm just going to take a little bit of orange and a little bit of white and mix that in right about here to make a lighter shade for his belt. And then we're going to continue on with taking our crimson red and some black, and then his long coat is going to come out like that. A long coat, almost looks like a dress. Okay, we're going to paint that in. I'm going to take Napthol Crimson. And you can already see by the way I'm directing my brush on an angle like that, it gives you some folds in his coat. And I'll take some more and I'll do that again. It'll work better once it's dry though, so I'll just add a little bit here. And some on his shoulder and his sleeve, a little bit here on the back. And let's not forget his hat. The reason for the dark base first is so that we can have all those shadows and folds really visible, and it'll help make our Santa look 3D. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out. And I'm going to be drying this off pretty soon, but I just want to take a little bit more of that orange mixture and add a little line here. Just a little shadow line under the white part of his hat. Add a little bit more orange to his belt. And then we'll take some black again. And we're going to come slight angle here. And then come up on an angle, and then back down. So this one up here is the back of the white fur on his coat. This little loop is inside. So you're seeing the front part, the inside of the front. And then we're gonna add a little triangle for his boots. We're gonna go inside that little loop. You're gonna make it a little bit wider at the bottom. We're gonna have his feet, the bottom of his boots tucked into the snow. And then his boots will have a little bit of fur on them too. I'm going to take a little bit of white right now because they're going to be a little bit more in shadow. And we're just going to tap right about here. Take a little bit more. And the reason why you want to tap is so that you get some texture to that fur. Okay, so we'll come in with a little bit of a light gray for the fur on the bottom of his coat. Tap to make it look fluffy. Add a little bit of length to the bottom of his boots here. Let's take a little bit of blue and black. Tap and dab under and around the sides of that fur. I'm going to take a little bit more of my Napthol Crimson and I'm going to bring this side out a little bit wider. Slowly add a little bit more red. Let's give him a red glove as well. Just add a little bit of a shadow just inside, like that. And then there's going to be a little fluffy pom-pom ball right there on the end of his hat. And we'll tap in the fur on his hat as well. We can always highlight this after. It's nice to start with a little bit of a light gray. And the next thing I'm going to do is correct down here and have a shadow going here, just to make it look like this isn't a sticker that we stuck on. Santa's not floating. So with a clean brush, some blue, white, and a little bit of black, I'm going to add a little shadow here. Slowly make it a little bit darker by increasing the amount of blue and black. Add a little bit more dabs in the snow here. Then a little bit of white. I'm going to soften this over here. So I was going to originally add my Santa up a little higher, but I didn't want to cover up too much of this area here. So, you know, it's a good lesson to learn how to cover things up in a painting. And don't freak out when you realize you decided that you want to paint something a little bit lower than you originally did, or just in general, if you need to cover something up. I find acrylic paint really forgiving. So don't be too afraid to go over and cover up some areas. It might take a little bit depending on how dark it is. Okay, so we're ready to start coming in with his hair, and I'm going to be going down to a small little round brush, a number 3, and I'm going to take, I've got quite a bit of white up here, let's just steal some of that, and I'm going to add a bright highlight right here. So it's going to be a little 3D sticking out. You'll be able to feel it once it dries, helping to give this even more of a 3D effect. Okay, so we're just adding that, and then we're going to come in and add some hair, and it's just going down over his shoulders and his back. I'm going to mix in a little bit of gray as well. So just any shade of gray that you want, and we'll just add a little bit, just kind of squiggly. And I also want to add a little dab of gray on the bottom, making this a little bit darker on the bottom of his little pom-pom there. And this side of the fur on his hat. Got to have those shadows, it's very important. And there as well. Now we have some shadows here already. I'm just going to emphasize on these a little bit more. Where there's folds, that, you know, where it kind of goes in. Where it goes in, you'll see it goes inside where we have those loops there. So it's going to be a little bit darker in there. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to take some white, and I'm just going to come inside and take off the width and the length of his hand. I'm going to bring a little bit more light, open this up just slightly here, so you can come in and reshape anything you might want after. Let's take a little bit of white now and start to tap in some brighter highlights here. And on the boots. And some more hair. You can kind of fluff it up, kind of go around. So this is why you had to make sure that you're going to make that pom-pom a little bit bigger. Make sure that your red underneath is dry. Before you add this. Okay, it's not going to look right until we add that sack, but I want to add a few more highlights here. So I'm going to come in now with our Pyrol Red, our nice beautiful bright Pyrol Red. I'm going to add just a little bit of white. Just a hint of white like this is really going to brighten it up a lot more. And you might need to, because we're you know, we're painting over something dark. So we're gonna come in and add these nice bright highlights on his hat where we want to see that light. So it looks velvety. Down his arm a little bit. We'll have a little bit on his back. And then we're going to come down on an angle and loop. Just going to add a little hint of that red in here because maybe we're seeing part of his pants as well. I'll just put in a little bit of the Napthol Crimson. Okay, so let's add a sack to our Santa. And for this step, we're just going to be adding, we're not going to see all the toys in the sack, we're just going to add a sack that comes around like this. So let's just take a little bit of water, some blue, some black, the rest of that orange. I think we can loosen that up. Let's take a little bit of water in there. Sure, there we go. That's just enough. Okay, a little bit of white in there, and we have sort of a light brown. You can paint it any color that you want. So I'm just going to have it come in here just below his pom-pom. It's going to stick out like this, and down and around and up here, kind of like a pear shape, right? Take a little bit of white, and we'll add a few lines here for some highlights. And then we're going to come in, take some red in with that, a little bit of red. You can add some, both of those reds in there, a little bit of blue as well if you want. And then we're going to just add a darker line from there. A little bit of water, thin this out. Pull that in. Okay, I'm going to take just straight black now, and I'm going to add this black on the right side of the sack, and we're going to add some lines in here for some folds in this bag. And then a little bit extra shadow right underneath. We'll take a little bit more white now. Add some more hair. I'm going to add a little bit of height to his hat. A little bit of that bright Pyrol Red. A little bit of a shadow down there. think I'm gonna make his arm a little bit thicker there and his waist come out a little bit wider right there and there. Bring this out. Take a little bit of white, mix that in just to make, kind of makes like a nice plum shade. And I'm gonna add that to his belt. I'm having so much fun with this one. I just love Christmas. The magic of Christmas. I hope it never goes away for you guys. It's sad when our kids grow up and we don't really celebrate Christmas the same way, but I'm just gonna add a little bit here to his shoulder area. When you have grandkids, it starts all over again, doesn't it? And we're at that stage now. We've got one grandson and another one on the way. So our grandson is going to have a brother, and he's due in March, so I'm very excited about that. March 2025. A little bit of red on that further, so I'm just going to go over top. I'm going to take some more white and refluff this up. I want it to feel 3D. Wherever we want to have this highlighted is where I'm adding more. And a few more little highlights on Santa's hair. And some on his sack. Maybe there's some snow that's collected there. So what's really bugging me about this painting, I really think it looks great. Like, I love the background. I love everything about it so far, except the arm. The arm is meant to be bent back, like his elbow somewhere here, but for some reason it's not capturing, I'm not capturing that the way I'd like to. So I'm gonna go over and make his arm longer. So what I'm gonna do is go over this with a little bit of black and my crimson. Just mix the two together to get that same dark base. And I'm gonna bring that right over and then I'm gonna take crimson and bring that down, and it looks better already. I'm gonna rinse my brush out. And I'm just gonna go over this, clean this area up a little bit. We're gonna have his cuff in here. So I'll just take a little bit of white like this, and I'll have his cuff, tapping it on like before to make it look fluffy. And then I'm going to go into my bright Pyrol Red. Just pull that in to the rest of his arm. I just cleaned my brush off because I'm painting wet on wet. I want to wash off any little bit of black that I happen to pick up. Now we have this line right here that I want to just kind of fade a little bit better into the red. So I'm just kind of tapping in that red and black. And then I'm going to take a clean brush with white. And I'm going to add more highlights. Right by his boot. I'm going to also add a little slant, just a little slant there to make it look like his, because he is looking in this direction. He's kind of like his stance is just a little bit looking towards the village. So if we just add a little bit of a slant to the bottom of his boots like that, just very slightly like that, then we can give that illusion. And then just clean up the edges with some white again. Just a little bit more orange, a little bit of black, and a little bit of white to make brown. And I'll add it to his sack. Just bringing out a little bit more color. We'll finish off with just a hint of crimson red right there. This one was so much fun to paint. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Thanks for watching. Have fun painting your own, and I'll see you all very soon in another video. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Bye!